Hey, so I did my project on Samson, and the reason why I picked Samson is because I really relate to his story, personally, about how you just have to have that faith in the end, just to fulfill the calling that God has in your life. So the first place that you will find the mention of Samson is in Judges chapter 13, verse 24, where the angel was telling Samson's mother that she was having a son, and that was just a miracle in itself. And my point, one of my first point was that it was talking about how Paul was mentioning how in Hebrew that the judges, including Samson, um, even though they had skills, even though they were especially touched by God, they had a special anointing, they had special strengths, that in the end, it wasn't their talents, it wasn't their strengths, it was their faith in God and knowing that God had called them to do something specific that made them fulfill that calling. And that kind of just segues into my second point, which is that Samson was a great example of faith when there's other people in the Bible that a lot of times we look to, like Abraham, like for his great amount of faith. But sometimes Samson seems to get skipped over sometimes. But I think it's just because I relate to Samson so much that his story sticks out to me, and it kind of wavers with you personally or whatever. But it was just talking about how Samson at the end, like he was solely relying on God to bring him strength to defeat the Philistines. And that was just so amazing to me, and like it really just says a lot about how God was in the Old Testament, instead of like people saying that God was so judgmental and everything, that God granted Samson his strength back in the end, even though he was far, even though he was lost. And that kind of goes into my last point, which was God had his hand on Samson from the start. And there was people think that, it was the hair that gave Samson his strength, and it wasn't. It was the hair was just a covenant between him and God. And that just goes to show that even though sometimes we break the covenant, that God is still there. We just have to call for him to give us strength in the end, and ask for him to let us fulfill our calling. So yeah, that's my project.